So an absolutely stunning ending to episode 5 of True Detective season 4. We got it a few days early because of the big game on Sunday, so they premiered it on streaming on Friday, I believe. I'm getting to it a little late because I didn't know, but wow, this episode really turned me into liking the show. I have a lot of criticisms of the season overall. If you guys have been watching my reviews, you know that, and none of that changes. But this episode shows me that they kind of started from the ending and worked backwards in terms of plotting out the show. And a lot of these extraneous subplots all have a reason to be in there, and it's to achieve these things that they're going to do in these last couple episodes. So all my criticisms still apply, but it really was satisfying to get to the end of the episode in the big moment. It's the best moment of the season. I said that the last episode was my favorite one so far because it actually got me to care about the characters, and I think there might be some confusion about why I like that episode. I like that episode because my biggest problem with the show is I don't care about the characters, and the mystery itself was not compelling enough to get me through the show without having that aspect to it, that I actually am invested in these characters. And last episode, they made them more sympathetic. They put them through some suffering, and that is something that will definitely get you to understand them, to relate to them a little bit. So even though the last episode had nothing to do with the mystery I still think is not very much. It's kind of hollow at the core of it. It really should be the characters first and foremost. The last episode got me a little bit invested. This episode is even better with that. So really, as it's going along, we only got one episode left. So can I say that I really like this season if I only like half of the episodes? If I end up liking the last episode, which I have some skepticism about. We'll get back to that later, but I don't know that I can say that for sure. But what I can say is that the ending of this episode is a stunning scene, big twist. Definitely loved it. So I don't think that you can watch this scene and be like, yeah, that didn't pay off. That didn't work for me. I think it's great. I think it's awesome. There might be some little tweaks that could have made it a little bit better, but damn, they really took this character Pryor here through the ringer in this episode. He's the one character that's been likable this whole time, and now they're really making him suffer, and that's something you gotta do as a writer. You gotta make people care about the character from the beginning and then really make them suffer so that you feel bad for them later in the season. So I think that they nailed it with this character in particular, and even Danvers, Navarro less so, but Danvers I ended up liking by the end of this episode. I haven't really cared for her much as of this whole series so far. Now I'm starting to get there. So that's my thing with this episode. It's definitely a big improvement. It's the best episode so far. And there's definitely things to criticize here and there, but in general, this episode, pretty good. I think the first 3 episodes, I gave like a 5 or 6 out of 10. I stand by that. Episode 4 was a 7 because I started to care about the characters. This episode is like an 8 because everything's paying off and it has that amazing moment at the end. And really, obviously one moment at the end isn't going to make the whole episode great, but everything leads up to that. So it all ties in. It's all working. So I think that this episode's like an 8. So that's where I'm at with this episode, guys. Let's get into the breakdown. So here's a scene that we start off with. This is Navarro's sister getting cremated. And that tragedy was definitely like the emotional core of the previous episode. So it kind of makes sense to put a capper on it and have that at the beginning of this. But on one point, I'm kind of like, okay, it's a bit extraneous. We don't need that for the plot. We already got there emotionally. I don't know that we necessarily needed that, but you have to show some residual effects for the main character, Navarro here, who is probably the weak point of the series, in my opinion. She had that emotional explosion last episode, and that really worked. But in general, she's just too stoic. She has 2 emotions, anger and just kind of like distant sad or whatever. So she's got 2 modes, not a lot of facial expression. So she's the weak point of this season, in my opinion. But it's hard not to feel for her there. So now we're doing some investigating, guys. We're questioning somebody. Wow, amazing. So this is the guy that found the ice caves. He's an addict. We found him at the end of the last episode. And basically all we get from this scene is where the entrance of the caves is. and that there were cave-ins and stuff like that. So not really a lot happened in this scene here. But at the end of the scene, the guy says, "I'll go there with you if you give me heroin." It's kind of like a shady deal that he requires. I mean, he's an addict. That's the one thing he wants. He's in rehab. Although my understanding is that based on the last episode, this lighthouse facility is not compulsory, so he doesn't have to be there. Maybe that's a little bit different for him because he has some legal ramifications there. I don't know. They said it's not a detention facility, so he could just walk out. I wonder why he's staying here if he just wants to get high again. That's one thing, right? That doesn't necessarily make sense, but that's okay. Here we got a scene with Navarro and Danvers in the car, and there's another scene later, another scene with them in the car, and it's really just reiterating stuff we already know. So these are two scenes I would probably snip out in the writing process. And yeah, you got to have Danvers see the urn in the back seat. Obviously, that gives a sense of the emotional space that Navarro is in. But that's just a little nitpick. Here we got Pryor and his wife kicking him out. And I don't know if I'm supposed to sympathize with the wife at all, but I just straight up don't at all. I get he's not home very much, and that is definitely straining on the relationship. And he did say some mean stuff at the end of the previous episode, but I hate her, to be honest. And I don't know if that's what the show wants me to feel or not. If it's not what the show wants me to feel, then they failed. So that's where I'm at with it. I really don't like this character. Anytime she's on screen, I'm like, I hate you. I don't think that's how I'm supposed to feel, but it is. This is a scene where we're just getting reiterating stuff we already know. Definitely cut that scene out. Here we got a protest scene that we're building up to. We got the cave-ins. It looks like they exploded the cave to cover something up. There's something in this cave that they're trying to hide, and that is the big mystery box we have, is what's inside the cave. We're going to find out next episode, I'm sure. So Pryor leaving his house, he walks past his dad's place. His dad is singing a song about how devastated with life he is. He had that heartbreaking thing with the scam lady who said that they were gonna get married, and then she didn't show up. So he's really in a sorrowful state. He's lost his family. He's a guy I can understand. Again, the mail order bride thing was definitely something that shouldn't have gotten out of the writers' room, in my opinion. I think that's just too many subplots at the end of the day, and it doesn't really add anything, in my opinion. But here we got this protest scene, and I know we've been building up this protest as like this big plot point, and it's the corruption of this mine is very much involved in the mystery. This scene here is the one part of this episode that I didn't particularly care for. We'll get back to that later. Pryor and his dad, obviously based on the end of the episode, is the big part of this episode. So there's a lot of scenes here where you're like, I kind of knew that something was going to happen with them based on the fact that they spent a lot of time on screen together. But first viewing, you might be like, why is this scene here? You see the end, you understand it. So I like that there's kind of this icy relationship, and he's like, I need somewhere to stay. So I think that they really nail the scenes with the father and the son. I think that's really good stuff. This protest scene, it's pretty generic. And Navarro is a trooper, right? So she's supposed to be here for this. But my understanding is that she was transferred over to work with Danvers for this case. So I don't know why she's here and at the other place. It's like the procedural stuff. They don't really put much thought into it. So Navarro is here. And I mean, early episodes, Navarro was just going wherever she wanted. She wasn't assigned to this case, but she's there anyway. So they don't put any thought into that. So they just need her here because they want to have a character we know on the police side in this scene. So it's kind of annoying. Navarro's hallucinating. The hallucinations is another thing I don't like. I still think it's supernatural, like ghosts and stuff, based on a lot of the context clues we talked about in my previous reviews. But at the end of the day, it's viewed as a hallucination, okay? It's very generic stuff. The horror elements of this season don't work for me. And that's probably because I'm a big horror fan and I watch a lot of this stuff. And this horror stuff, it doesn't really have that build up or that payoff. It's not genuinely scary. It's so quick, you don't get the suspense. It just doesn't work. It's very generic. It's like horror for people who don't watch horror. So if you like it, then, if you're a big horror fan, I feel like you're probably feeling like me. It's just, why is this here? I don't know. It's just not really doing it for me. And this protest scene is generic, and it's just to get the daughter character arrested and more conflict there. That's another extraneous subplot, and there is a reason for it we'll get back to later. Navarro ends up arresting her, and they go to the station. Now we got a big piece of information about the funding for the research facility. Turns out it's connected to the mine, and this big conglomerate company that invests in a lot of stuff, they are invested in this as well. My question is, I don't know why this information was withheld other than for plot reasons. Why he didn't piece this together before when he was looking into it. Because, it's tax returns, it's all public stuff, and, it doesn't seem like it should have been withheld this long, but it's for the plot. So I guess I can get there. But it's this big piece of information. Maybe there's some corruption because this research facility was looking into the pollution. Maybe they're getting paid off for doing that. So, that's a big revelation here. And now we got Pryor talking to the daughter character. And I don't like this scene either because, again, she's like, they're talking about Pryor's wife, right? And she's like, dude, she just wants you to be the sweet idiot. They say the sweet idiot thing again. Is this something that people say about the people that they're married to? I don't know about you guys, but if I am blessed enough to get married to somebody, I want her to respect me a little bit. I don't want to be called an idiot by her. Maybe if you are an idiot, you're just like, well, I'm just an idiot. I don't, maybe you embrace it. But he's not even an idiot. Like, he's making all the connections. He's doing, why is he, I don't understand it. I don't know. And then he's supposedly was a football player, and he threw a game because somebody's dad died. That's what she accuses him of, and he doesn't accept that. And I don't know. That scene doesn't work for me. Leave it on the cutting room floor. I don't need it, personally. Going to the mine because they want to talk about the protest supposedly, but it ends up actually being about the case they're working on currently. Connolly is there, and basically the mining company is putting the screws to the police. They want everything to go away. They're trying to hide that cave-in thing, and their tendrils are everywhere. So Connolly seems to be on the take. And the bodies, the frozen bodies, the forensics came back that it was actually a weather event, which nobody believes, especially because we had the veterinarian guy looking at the bodies saying that they froze after they died. So that's what made them think it was a murder case, etc. But the forensics are covering it up, is the implication of the scene here. And here's Danvers. Like, Danvers has been, like, mean to everybody. And this is a scene where it's warranted. It is actually awesome. And I was loving her telling people to fuck off and all that. And it was great. So I love this scene here. And Connolly basically says, hey, I know what you did where you killed that guy before. And I'm going to use that against you. It's like a threat. So that is crucial. And there's a lot of aspects here. Like I said that these two hooking up was extraneous subplot. The reason they have the subplot in there is because Connolly's on the take, but the mining company needs to ask somebody else to do the shady thing. They need to cover up engineer guy who knows about the ice caves. But they won't ask Connolly to do it because, one, he's a politician, and two, because they're hooking up, so he wouldn't actually go that far. So that's what I mean when I say they're working backwards. So they start at, we need to have this thing with Hank and his dad, and then they work backwards to, okay, why wouldn't Connolly just be asked to do the thing if he's already on the take? And then they're like, okay, well, we'll have him hook up with Danvers. It's like they're working backwards to make the ending work. So that's what I mean when I say that. And here we got the scene with Hank, and he is basically asked to kill the engineer guy, and now we know that he helped cover up the cold case murder in the past, so he was on the take there. and he was supposed to get chief of police based on that, but it was not given to him, but they paid him and all that, so there's a lot of corruption and shady stuff going on. And here we got a scene at the laundromat. Navarro's hallucinating again. I've talked about, I don't like these scenes. And then the bartender boyfriend comes, and he says this guy recognizes the spiral. It was a warning to stay away, places you could fall in the ice. So it's related to the caves. And that leads to this scene here where Navarro's we got to go to the caves right now. And Danvers is like, the case is over because Connolly knows everything. So this scene is really good too. I love this confrontation here. And the other thing here is like Danvers gave up at this point. Navarro doesn't care. She wants to keep going. And Danvers, we want to have this conflict where she wants to save herself at first. She has that selfish motivation. It's understandable. You don't want to go to prison, etc. But we need to get her to the place where she goes along with the case anyway and defies the hierarchy and the orders and whatnot. And the way they do that is through the daughter. So the daughter, the extraneous protests and all this stuff, that's giving Danvers a reason to continue the investigation. She wants to do the right thing because of her, and she knows the truth about, people are being poisoned in the stillbirths and all that. So that's, again, another example of starting at the end and working backwards, So that's just, again, explaining why there's so many extraneous subplots in here. And if it was a little bit more organically put in there, there's maybe an extra episode or two could have helped with that, flesh things out a bit more. It just feels like a lot is jam-packed in this show. And here we got a scene, and this is when I knew for sure Hank was probably going to die in this episode, was this scene here where he's telling a story of how he has to break through the ice to get his son out of there. A story from when he was 9. It shows how, even though we saw him slap his son in the face, there's still that love and that desperation there. And it's another symbol of breaking through the ice to find the truth. That's what Danvers and Navarro are trying to do. They want to break into the cave to find the hidden truth. And the hidden truth for Hank is that his family is important to him. So there's definitely some symbolic stuff going on there. That's a really good scene. Love that scene there. Here we got a scene of burying the ashes in the ice, and Rose is here, and then Navarro hallucinates and walks away, and then she has to escape the cracking ice. And another scene I could have done without, the hallucination stuff is kind of lame to me. There's some supernatural stuff going on. Maybe she sees the car crash thing again. And I forgot to mention there's a flashback with Danvers where seemingly the ghost of her son was telling her that she's back. And, there's going to be supernatural nonsense in the next episode. We'll be criticizing, I'm sure. But most of this episode is without that, so I'm good. I'm not going to complain in this review any more than I just did. But Danvers is here with the daughter now, and you feel for her in this scene. Like, you just want everything to be okay, But it's just, again, reinforcing, there's stillbirths, all these bad things. And like I said, just giving Danvers a reason to continue. Now Danvers is being followed by Hank, and we're looking at the graves of stillbirths, and Hank's being creepy. And then basically Peter is told that the father is doing some shady shit in the background. And then Peter confronts Danvers with the guy that they murdered. Because he murdered his girlfriend or wife or whatever, and he's confronted with it. And I like this scene. I think it's good. The confrontation is great, and I love the acting, the performances here. Extraneous scene with bartender boyfriend. Navarro comes in. We don't need that. It's extra. Now Pryor is staying in this really cold shack. I would not want to stay there. And then Danvers comes back. She's back on the case, and she got the guy what he needed. Now, I do think, again, just because there's so little screen time, so few episodes, it's a bit quick to go from I'm off the case, we're not doing it, I don't want to get arrested, to we're back on the case, we're doing it. It's a bit quick of a transition, and I see how they get there, but just the fact that it's so compacted, you don't really feel the impact of anything. And that's just this season overall. Everything's so quick. Again, the horror stuff doesn't have that suspense value because everything's compact. We need to, on a dime, get to everything. So that's probably my biggest overarching criticism, is just too much in too little time. But we got the guy who's going to lead us to the cave. And then this is the big scene here. She gives him the heroin. She does get pointed on the map where the cave is, so we got some lead. And then Hank shows up, and he's going to take the Otis guy away. And this is when things start really heating up, and the tension is rising. He's got his gun out. He's going to kill the guy, but Danvers needs him. But the thing is, she doesn't really, because obviously we still have to go to the cave in the next episode. But still, you know, the tension in this scene is palpable. Pete shows up, and he's got his dad in his sights. He knows what's going on, and seeing the heartbreak here when he realized how his dad is compromised. Again, it's a bit quick to go from point A to point B, but it really works in this scene, and the shock value is definitely there. And Hank is raising his gun at Danvers. I'm not exactly sure why he's got to shoot Danvers. I guess he just has to cover everything up. He doesn't want to get implicated in anything. She's too close. He's just going to get rid of her. That's not what he was asked to do, but I suppose that that's just a heat of the moment decision that he made. And then Pete shoots him, and that's just, wow, devastating, man. And then Navarro shows up, and they're planning what to do. They're like, we're going to go to Connolly, and then Navarro says you can't because he's on the take, and they're going to make Peter go to jail for shooting his dad, and nothing is going to go how they want it to. So she's saying that they got to cover it up, and that's the thing with the whole corruption and shadiness and the film noir staples is when the system is corrupted, you can't play by the book, right? I mean, that's the kind of theme here. It's like, if they do everything by the book is going to slam shut on them, and they're going to pay the price for it. So I love this ending scene, and we got a great cliffhanger. Peter's going to clean up his own dad's dead body and everything. I'm really curious how they're going to get away with everything. It doesn't seem like they can really cover it up. I think Danvers was right that they can't. It's too big. There's a storm coming that's going to help them out. You know, it's definitely symbolic, of course. You know, the climax of the show has a storm and everything's really heating up. So my criticisms all still stand, and I criticize this episode heavily, but that moment at the end really made it work for me overall. So I enjoyed this episode, and I anticipate enjoying like half of next episode, and then the supernatural stuff is going to get to me. I don't know, the whole scientist murder thing feels extraneous at this point. I don't know how it's all going to pay off. I have a feeling that next episode might not be all that satisfying, but this one definitely was. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section, and with that, it's been your boy Shuggy. Hope to see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching, everybody. Peace out.